So determining factors. So these are the factors that set the table for cost optimization. These are the precursors, if you like. Now, before I get into this though, I want to ask all of you two questions. So back to Mentimeter again. They're very similar. How are most organizations implementing Gen AI today? Okay, interesting. Dead even, something I didn't expect, but that's why we do these things. Everything happens on the day, doesn't it? So the correct answer is actually all figures, right? Just what the 9. Pre-built solution. All right, so pre-built solution. So I don't know if we have the percentages here, but it's roughly 46% are doing that now. Okay, now let's play this game and go forward. Next question. Same thing over the next 2 years. Yeah, I think I can stop it there. Correct. Now, so it's moving, sliding. But what's interesting is it's not actually moving in the middle. So it is 38% customized, pre-built, staying at 38% over the next few years. It's not moving. Now, of course, there's organizations, things are moving, but it's a macro number, it's not moving. Where's the movement? From pre-built to build, versions of build. That's where the movement is. So the 4 over there, it's interesting, you know, you're not wrong. That is actually what the trend is. But technically speaking, the movement in staying the same is the customized versions of ChatGPT, these kind of things. That's where it's staying. All right. Now let's go back to the present. All right, so it's very important for organizations to really understand ultimately buy versus build. Now, what is buy versus build? The answer is it's a spectrum. There's not just fixed things. I'm going to give you a few fixed things to bring to life, but it's a spectrum. And in the extreme case with buy is that or actually we'll build because the slide is build first. On the extreme case with build, you're building your own large language model. You know, it's happening. Right? A lot of them coming from governments and things like that, but there are companies doing that, right? And obviously there's a lot of technology companies doing that, right, that are making money from that. So that's the extreme build. The more common build or flavors, again, this is all a spectrum. The more common versions of builds are related to buying an open source model and customizing it, and then to what degree. Jump across the fence to buy, you're taking a proprietary model like ChatGPT, you are customizing it. That's the thing we said in 2 years' time would be the most problem. Then, on the most extreme, you're taking pre-built, and you know, again, it's a different spectrum, but the most extreme, you're just taking it and putting it in. It's available in the market, there's a lot of vendors, you can price compete, whatever, right? It makes sense to get that selected for the market. And then, yeah, following what everybody else is probably doing, of course. But that might be the right decision in some cases. So, if I break this down a bit, so, purpose of use cases. Is it an agent or is it content generation? Agent, again, some discussion about this too, but it wasn't as deep. So I'll go into, for those that are familiar, you know, these are things that are autonomous or semi-autonomous that are just running. And they're based on how much autonomy you want to give them, they're going to take some action. Could be for fraud detection, great example, right? I mean, I just had my credit card frauded and had to do all those corrections, such a pain in the, you know, I won't say the word, but I think everybody has had their credit card frauded, knows how much of a pain that is. But that fraud detection mechanism, typically those are agents. It sees it, bam. Another example is is content generation. Is it for content? Is it for language content? Is it for image content? Is it for video content? That's quite common. But that purpose is important to know upfront. Budget capacity. What's your envelope? What's your willingness to invest? Differs. Size of company, industry, etc. Then we get to your capabilities. Are you internal? Do you have good internal capabilities, numbers, variance in skill, proficiencies of skills, combined with your MSP? Because again, that's a whole spectrum, isn't it? You can't just say, well, all internal, you can, but it's a spectrum too, how much. But I'll just bucket them together. It's a sub-conversation to decide which one's which, and I probably shouldn't go into that rabbit hole, probably take about 3 minutes. But we'll just keep them together. What I will say though about internal is, I'll call that out, is companies are internal for a lot of reasons. Big companies can be internal because they've always had big technology shops. And then you have to keep feeding, if you like, the beast. I mean, they have to have projects, they have to have budget, they have to, that's the model, right? So you gotta, what's next? Or you have a small company started by real some tech savvy investors. They have internal because they're tech savvy entrepreneurs, right? Founders. So that's another model. Platform partners. Which partners do you have? Do they have good features? Good deals? You trust them? Do you have a good ecosystem? Because it's not just one tool for the toolbox. If it is, you're gonna have to look at that in your cost. Because if you do have one toolbox, that probably, again, if we assume multiple use cases now, probably isn't gonna be the right answer. Obviously, if you only have one or two, that's fine, right? I'm not talking about that. But as you keep putting more use cases on Gen AI, you're gonna need to have variable partners to maximize your cost and potentially features and innovation. Okay? So that really sets the table. Let me bring this to life. So this is a case for an unconstrained retailer. This is a retailer that has budget, has resources, etc. And this is a use case for content generation. So in this case, we talked about this a lot, personalization, virtual shopping assistant. I will reference just a color over one of our case studies that we did for a large fashion retailer that's a personal styling assistant. But it's the same game, providing recommendations to customers, keeps your retention, upsell, cross-sell revenue, etc. right? High CO priority. In this particular case, but it can vary, this is about upsell and cross-sell revenue, even if it's not measured. It's another topic, we'll talk about that, measurement. But then also things like reducing returns. We talked about that as far as sustainability concerns and even cost. There's a lot there, right? So that's part of it too. Internal MSP capabilities, high. Vendors, high but. Worry about lock-in, worry about cost, worry about the fact that everybody else is doing the same thing. I don't exactly want that. I want some kind of distinguishing touch in my experience, that I want some more level of customization. This client, made sense for them. It was actually ChatGPT, but it doesn't have to be. It was taking a proprietary model and fine-tuning it, customizing it, etc. That was the right answer for that particular use case, for that particular organization. So let's talk about numbers a little bit. Everybody likes numbers. Obviously, you see I like numbers. I already read off a bunch, but this is a slide that kind of gets a little bit into benchmarking of cost of AI engagements. But before I do that, back to mentioning here again. So the next question for you all. Okay. How are most organizations planning, where are the highest costs, of course, where are the highest costs typically found within Gen AI projects? What do you reckon? Think about the last question that was briefly up there. Think about that. I love seeing these things play out. It never gets old. Okay. Yes. I mean, again, all great answers. Here's where it really is done. Number one, model licensing. That represents the first slide where I talked about the license costs going up. That is number one. 35 to 50% of your costs, typically. If you're using a license, a vendor model or a license, of course, not doing build. What was also interesting is the second one, which also can be more than the first one, all these things have ranges, is actually development, which is what you have up there. That's why this is such an interesting predicament, because you have to pick the right sourcing model for the right use case. You can have very high cost in development, you can have very high cost in licensing. So, and of course compute, definitely, absolutely. That's always, that's in zero, it's cloud. That's what your FinOps capabilities that you in a lot of organizations, right, particularly larger, that's their main objective, isn't it? To manage that with the rest of the organization. Okay, so, excellent, thank you for that. So let's jump back to the present. So again, very hard, we talked about this a spectrum of build buy. So with that spectrum, there's so many different types of projects, there's so many different sizes of projects, companies, use cases, etc. But to make it simple, I have 3 t-shirt sizes, and yes, we could have gone extra small or extra large, and there's a lot of things that we can go more on this, right? But we've done 3. So if you look at a small size, 10 to 100K, these would be things like productivity tools. Could be anything like Chrome plugins for your calendar, and it'll automatically say, now you need to push this meeting based on your priorities, all that kind of office productivity. They're typically in that range. Obviously, if a large organization is going across, it goes bigger than that, but you get the idea. They're kind of usually in that range. Fine-tuned customer chatbot, medium size, it's an example, 100 to 500K. You see the breakdown in the cost generally between proof of concept, minimum viable product, and launch and maintenance. That's typically how it goes. I can double click that, but just being conscious of time, I probably shouldn't. And then with large, like the example of the virtual shopping assistant, and those kind of personalization with recommendations to customers. I know it's a big range, as I said, I didn't have an Excel, but 500K to 9 million is usually the range for that. That's typically what you're talking about. So.